In this episode, we start with a challenge that sits at the center of security leadership, but often surprises new learners. Good security ideas do not automatically become approved security programs just because they are technically correct. A security manager can identify a real weakness, understand the risk clearly, and even know the right fix, yet still fail to get action if the message does not connect with the people who control priorities, money, and attention. That is why communicating the business case and gaining stakeholder buy-in matters so much in the world of security management. It is the bridge between seeing a problem and getting an organization to respond in a meaningful way. For someone preparing for Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, this topic is important because the role is not only about protecting systems. It is also about explaining why protection matters in business terms, helping others understand what is at stake, and turning concern into support. When that communication is done well, security becomes something the organization chooses to support rather than something it feels forced to tolerate. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A business case, in plain language, is a reasoned explanation for why the organization should do something. In security, that usually means explaining why a change, investment, policy, initiative, or program deserves support. The mistake beginners often make is assuming the business case is mostly a technical description of a threat or control. It is not. A technical description may explain what is happening, but a business case explains why leaders should care, what could happen if nothing changes, what value will come from action, and what trade-offs the organization must accept. That difference matters because most stakeholders do not make decisions based on technical detail alone. They make decisions by balancing risk, cost, timing, operational impact, compliance obligations, customer trust, and strategic goals. A good business case translates security concerns into the language of decision-making. It connects a security issue to business outcomes such as service availability, legal exposure, customer confidence, revenue protection, operational stability, and reputation. When that connection is weak, the proposal sounds like a specialist asking for specialist tools. When that connection is strong, the proposal sounds like a leader protecting the organization's mission. Stakeholder buy-in means more than simple agreement. It means the right people understand the issue well enough to support the direction, defend the decision, and help remove barriers that could slow progress. In most organizations, security work touches many groups, so buy-in is rarely a one-person event. Senior leaders may approve the budget, but business unit managers may need to accept process changes. Legal teams may need to weigh regulatory exposure. Operations teams may need to support implementation, and frontline employees may need to change daily behavior. If those groups are not aligned, a security initiative can be approved on paper and still fail in practice. That is why buy-in is partly about influence and partly about shared understanding. People support what they believe is relevant, reasonable, and worth the effort. They resist what feels confusing, disconnected, expensive, or disruptive without clear benefit. For a security manager, the goal is not to pressure every stakeholder into saying yes. The goal is to create enough clarity and confidence that the organization sees the proposal as a sensible response to a real business need rather than an isolated demand from the security team. One of the most useful ideas for beginners is that different stakeholders care about different outcomes, even when they are looking at the same security issue. A finance leader may focus on cost, budget timing, and financial exposure. An operations leader may care more about uptime, workflow disruption, and staffing impact. A legal or compliance stakeholder may focus on obligations, liability, and documentation. A product or sales leader may think about customer trust, speed to market, and competitive effect. The security manager has to understand these different viewpoints before presenting the business case, because a message that works for one audience can fail with another. Saying that a control reduces exposure may sound persuasive to one group, but too vague to another. Saying that a change protects service continuity during busy seasons may matter deeply to operations. Saying that better identity controls reduce fraud losses may resonate with finance. This does not mean the core truth changes for each audience. It means the explanation is adjusted so each stakeholder can see how the issue affects their own responsibilities and why supporting the proposal helps them succeed. Before someone can communicate the business case well, they need to understand the problem well enough to describe it without hiding behind jargon. That starts with defining the issue clearly. What exactly is the risk, weakness, or opportunity? What business process does it affect? What could happen if it is ignored? How likely is the harm? How severe could it be? And what conditions make the issue more urgent now than before? These questions help the security manager move from vague concern to a practical story. A weak message says the environment needs stronger security because threats are increasing. A stronger message explains that a certain business process depends on a system with weak access control, that unauthorized changes could interrupt billing or customer support, and that the current design makes timely detection difficult. Notice how the second explanation gives people something concrete to think about. It shows cause and effect. It makes the conversation easier because stakeholders can picture the business impact. Clarity is one of the most powerful tools in gaining buy-in, because confusion usually leads to delay, and delay is often how important security work quietly dies. Another part of a strong business case is explaining impact in terms people can compare with other priorities. Security teams often understand technical impact, but leaders must decide among many competing needs, so they need a broader picture. That picture might include possible revenue loss, customer churn, regulatory penalties, service outages, recovery costs, labor burdens, missed strategic opportunities, or damage to brand trust. Sometimes the impact is direct and measurable, and sometimes it is indirect but still important. For example, an incident may not immediately destroy revenue, yet it can create months of distraction, extra audit work, customer uncertainty, and pressure on leadership attention. Those effects are real even when they are harder to count precisely. A thoughtful business case does not pretend every risk can be reduced to a perfect number. Instead, it uses reasonable evidence, historical examples, internal trends, and informed judgment to show that the issue deserves attention. New learners should understand that decision-makers are not expecting magical certainty. They are expecting a balanced explanation that shows seriousness without exaggeration and urgency without panic. Cost is always part of the conversation, but cost should not be framed too narrowly. Many beginners think the business case succeeds when the security team proves that the price of a solution is lower than the price of a breach. That can be helpful, but real decisions are usually more complex. Leaders also want to know about timing, staffing, ongoing maintenance, training needs, dependencies on other teams, and what will happen if the organization delays action. A proposal that appears affordable at the start can become unattractive if it creates heavy operational burden or requires long-term support the organization cannot sustain. On the other hand, a proposal with a noticeable upfront cost may be very attractive if it reduces recurring failures, improves audit outcomes, simplifies processes, or supports future growth. This is why the business case should show not only what the organization must spend, but also what it gains, avoids, or enables. Good communication helps people see security spending as part of business resilience and organizational effectiveness rather than as a detached technical expense that competes with more visible business priorities. One common misconception is that fear is the fastest route to buy-in. It is true that security incidents, headlines, and regulatory concerns can get attention, but fear alone rarely produces durable support. When people feel they are being frightened into a decision, they may become defensive, skeptical, or overwhelmed. They may approve something quickly under pressure and then withdraw support later when the sense of crisis fades. Strong security leadership uses concern responsibly. It acknowledges real risk without sounding theatrical. It explains consequences honestly, but it also offers a path forward that feels practical and proportionate. This balance matters because stakeholders want to know two things at the same time. They want to know why the issue matters, and they want confidence that the proposed response is reasonable. If the message focuses only on disaster, the audience may hear pressure without direction. If it focuses only on benefits, the audience may miss the seriousness of the exposure. Effective business communication holds both truths together. It says this issue matters, here is why, and here is a manageable action that aligns with business needs. Trust plays an enormous role in gaining stakeholder support, and trust is built long before any single proposal reaches the table. Stakeholders are more likely to support a security recommendation when they believe the security leader understands the business, respects operational realities, and does not bring forward every issue as an emergency. Credibility grows when the security team consistently communicates clearly, prioritizes thoughtfully, and shows awareness of trade-offs. It also grows when leaders admit uncertainty where uncertainty exists instead of pretending to know every answer. New students sometimes imagine that authority alone will persuade others, especially when security risks are involved. In reality, people often support leaders who show judgment rather than those who merely show expertise. A stakeholder who feels heard is more likely to collaborate. A stakeholder who believes the security team appreciates their constraints is more likely to work through difficult changes. Over time, that relationship capital becomes one of the most valuable assets in security management. It makes future business cases easier because the conversation starts from a foundation of trust instead of suspicion. It is also important to understand that buy-in usually develops through conversation, not through a single perfect presentation. A formal presentation may be the visible moment when a decision is made, but the real work often happens before that moment. Informal discussions, early feedback, relationship building, and careful listening help shape the final message. When a security manager talks with key stakeholders ahead of time, they can learn what concerns are likely to surface, what objections may appear, and which points will matter most to each audience. That allows the business case to be strengthened before it reaches a decision forum. It also helps prevent a common failure, which is surprising people with a proposal they do not feel prepared to support. Early engagement does not mean manipulating people behind the scenes. It means respecting the fact that complex organizational decisions require context. When stakeholders feel included early, they are more likely to view the proposal as something they helped refine rather than something imposed from outside. That shift can make the difference between passive resistance and active support. Simple examples help show how this works in practice. Imagine a security team wants better access controls for a sensitive customer platform. A weak business case might focus almost entirely on technical shortcomings such as outdated authentication methods and inconsistent privilege reviews. Those facts matter, but many leaders will hear them as internal technical maintenance. A stronger message connects the issue to real business outcomes. It explains that the platform supports customer transactions, that excessive access increases the chance of unauthorized changes or data exposure, that a failure here could damage customer trust and interrupt service, and that the proposed improvements can reduce exposure while also creating clearer accountability. The proposal may also explain how the change can be phased to reduce operational strain. Notice what happened there. The security concerns stayed the same, but the framing changed. The message became relevant to leaders beyond the security function. It gave them a reason to care, a reason to act now, and reassurance that the solution was practical rather than disruptive for its own sake. Resistance should be expected, not treated as proof that the message failed. Some stakeholders resist because they truly disagree with the priority. Others resist because they fear cost, disruption, delay, loss of control, or unclear responsibility. A wise security manager listens carefully enough to tell the difference. If a stakeholder says the proposal is too expensive, the real concern may be budget timing rather than total cost. If someone says the risk is low, they may actually lack context about the business impact. If another leader says their team cannot support the change, they may be worried about workload, training, or conflicting goals. These concerns are not obstacles to ignore. They are part of the business reality the security manager must work within. Addressing resistance will often means clarifying scope, adjusting timing, refining the rollout, or improving the explanation of value. It does not always mean changing the core recommendation, but it does mean engaging respectfully with the people who will live with the consequences. Buy-in becomes much more realistic when people feel their concerns are understood rather than dismissed as ignorance. Another beginner-friendly insight is that security proposals are stronger when they support something the business already cares about. Organizations have goals such as growth, reliability, customer trust, digital transformation, operational efficiency, and regulatory readiness. Security gains power when it is connected to those goals instead of presented as a separate parallel agenda. For example, if the company wants to expand into a regulated market, stronger governance and reporting may help that expansion happen with fewer surprises. If the company wants faster digital services, resilient architecture and sound risk management can help avoid outages and public failures. If leadership is focused on customer retention, better data protection may become part of the promise the company makes to its customers. None of this means security should simply rebrand itself to sound fashionable. It means security leaders should honestly identify where protection and business success reinforce each other. That alignment is central to CISM thinking. Security management is not just about stopping bad things. It is about helping the organization operate confidently, responsibly, and sustainably in the face of risk. When support is finally gained, communication still does not end. Stakeholder buy-in must be maintained through follow-up, progress reporting, and visible accountability. If leaders approved a security initiative based on promised value, they will want evidence that the work is moving forward and that the expected benefits remain realistic. This does not require endless technical detail. It requires clear updates about what has been completed, what risks remain, what challenges have emerged, and whether adjustments are needed. Continued communication shows that the security team treats approval as the beginning of shared responsibility rather than the end of persuasion. It also reinforces trust because stakeholders can see that commitments are being taken seriously. Over time, consistent follow-through strengthens future business cases. When leaders have seen previous proposals turn into disciplined action and real improvement, they are more likely to listen openly the next time security asks for support. In that way, each successful communication effort helps build the foundation for the next one, creating a healthier and more mature security culture across the organization. As we close, the biggest lesson to carry forward is that communicating the business case and gaining stakeholder buy-in is not a soft extra around security work. It is part of the work itself. Security managers succeed not just by identifying risk, but by helping others understand why a response matters, how it supports business goals, and what makes the proposed action worth the investment of time, money, and effort. Clear language, sound judgment, audience awareness, and credible follow-through all matter because security decisions are made by people balancing many pressures at once. When you understand that reality, the topic becomes less mysterious. The business case is simply the story of why action makes sense, and buy-in is the shared confidence that the story is true and the path forward is worthwhile. For a new learner, that is an important shift in perspective. It reveals that security leadership is not only about protecting technology. It is also about earning trust, shaping decisions, and helping an organization choose security as part of doing business well.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.